That morning came wrapped in the soft glow of sunrise, with air that carried the faint scent of blooming flowers mixed with the subtle hum of distant birds. I sat on my porch, the familiar creak of the wooden bench beneath me a steady companion as I cradled a steaming cup of tea between my hands. The shawl around my shoulders, a gift from my late husband, reminded me of the warmth and care that once filled this home. For a moment, I let myself be carried away by memories, the kind that fold gently around the heart when all is still. My eyes lingered on the driveway, where the morning dew shimmered faintly on cracked asphalt. But the thing that usually stood there was missing, the classic car my husband had entrusted to me years ago. It was more than just a vehicle. It held our shared history, the laughter we poured into evening drives, the quietness we treasured on lonely miles, and the promises whispered during sunsets. That car was my sanctuary, a bridge to a past that was both painful and beautiful. Yet now, the space was empty. A sharp pang settled through me as I realized the car had been taken away, sold without a word. I reached for the front door and stepped inside, the quiet walls swallowing the faint echo of my own breath. On the kitchen table lay a note, the handwriting unmistakably Lily's, rushed and faintly careless. Asterisk, I sold the car. It was for your own good. You're too old to be driving around like that. I took the insurance money. Please trust I did what's best. Asterisk, those words burned slowly into the skin of my heart. To think my own daughter had made such a choice without even telling me, it felt like a blade disguised as concern. How could she dismiss not only my affection for that car but also the memories it carried? To her, I was apparently too old, a liability to be managed away. And the insurance money, meant to be a safeguard, was quietly taken and kept, hidden beneath a veil of assumed authority. I sank down near the window, my hands trembling slightly, the note fluttering from my fingers onto the table. In the silence, my thoughts swirled, years spent nurturing my children, sleepless nights filled with worry and prayers, dinners where stories were shared and dreams shaped. I remembered laughter around this very table, the way light danced in Lily's eyes when she was just a girl. Those images now felt distant, as though seen through a shattered mirror. It was never about the car alone. It was about respect, trust, and the invisible thread that tied a mother to her daughter. That thread had been stretched and torn in the shadows of selfishness and disregard. The house felt heavier, each corner echoing the weight of unspoken words and broken promises. I could almost feel Lily's absence, like a hollow space shaped in the air where trust used to reside. How had we drifted so far from the bond I had carefully nurtured? How had my daughter become someone who could deny me a simple joy, a keepsake of love and life? No anger seized me. No heated words burned my lips. Instead, a cold emptiness lurked beneath a fragile veil of shock. I felt small, shoved aside in the family story I had helped write. And yet that smallness was tempered by a quiet, stubborn flame lodged deep in my chest, a flicker of resilience that refused to be snuffed out. I thought of all I had given, so many tears shed quietly, so many sacrifices made with silent hope. I thought especially of my husband, who had trusted me to keep our family's heart beating steadily. Could I hold on to that strength now, in the face of such blatant betrayal from my own child? Outside, the morning sun climbed higher, indifferent to my sorrow. I looked out once more at the driveway, imagining the car's polished curves and shiny chrome. Each detail came alive in my mind as a metaphor not only for loss, but also for all that still remained untarnished within me. The betrayal was real, and it stung sharply. But beneath it, there was a fragile courage beginning to take shape. The insurance money gone, the memories tainted, the bond fractured, the weight was almost unbearable. Yet as I stared at the empty spot where my freedom had once rested, something profound settled over me. I was still here. My story was not over. The silence around me was not defeat, but a quiet before the storm. A day would come when the ache would give way to resolve. That car was my past, and without it, I was adrift, but with time, I might find new roads to travel, new symbols to cherish, new freedom to claim. The betrayal was a wound wide and deep, but it marked the first step on an unexpected path. That morning taught me a painful but clear truth. Some bonds, no matter how tightly woven, can snap. But even broken threads can lead to new tapestries woven from pain, yes, but also from strength, courage, and the promise of reclaiming what was lost. Every mile ahead would be mine to travel, and with each one, I would carry not only the weight of betrayal but also the indomitable spirit of a mother who refuses to be forgotten, silenced, or controlled. In the silence that settled after the shock, I found myself drifting deep inside my memories, tracing back through years filled with love, sacrifice, and quiet strength. The faces of my late husband and children floated before me, each a chapter written in the story of my life. My husband, with his steady hands and calm heart, who had always been my anchor. My children, full of promise and dreams. But most vividly, my daughter Lily, whose laughter once brightened every corner of this house. Those memories were a balm but also a reminder of how much had changed. The car, once a symbol of our shared joy and freedom, was gone, sold away without my consent. It wasn't just the loss of a possession, it was a severing of trust so profound it echoed painfully in every fiber of my being. I felt as if the ground beneath me had shifted, leaving me adrift in a sea of betrayal. Yet amid that sorrow, a quiet flame flickered within me, a resilience born from decades of weathering storms. I thought of the lessons I had learned and taught, patience, endurance, and the strength to rise even when the weight of the world threatened to crush me. Those lessons were not just words but the foundation of who I was. I considered the anger that might have flared, but it felt hollow and futile. Rage could burn fiercely, but it quickly consumed and left only ash. Instead, I chose silence, a deliberate, thoughtful quiet. In that silence, I confronted the truth of my pain but also the immense power within me to respond differently. I sat for hours, letting the ache settle without letting it become my entire existence. I knew the journey ahead would require more than anger. It would demand strategy, patience, and an unwavering belief in my own worth. The betrayal was a wound, yes, but also a turning point, a painful but clear invitation to reclaim my voice and dignity. I began to see the path forward with tentative clarity. This was not the end of my story, but the painful first step toward rediscovering who I was beyond the roles others had cast me in. I pictured a future where my choices mattered, where my life was not dictated by the greed or dismissiveness of those around me. The memories, once a source of sorrow, turned into guides. They reminded me of the love I had given and the strength that had carried me through years of joy and hardship. I vowed to carry those lessons with me, not as weights, but as compass points directing me toward healing and autonomy. I reflected on my husband's quiet trust in my ability to manage not only our family but also the complexities of life itself. His belief in me was a wellspring of strength I could draw upon now, as I faced this betrayal from my own child, a betrayal so deep that it threatened to erase the years of love and sacrifice. The sun climbed higher outside, indifferent to my pain, yet its light warmed the edges of my thoughts, encouraging a fragile hope. I realized that the car, the insurance money, and the broken bond with Lily were painful but limited pieces of my life. Beneath them lay an essential truth. I was still here, still standing, still capable of writing new chapters. I understood that some bonds, no matter how enduring they seem, can break. But broken threads do not mean the end of the tapestry. They create opening spaces where new patterns can be woven from strength, courage, and self-discovery. With every breath, I felt a growing determination. This quiet suffering, this profound sense of loss, would not define me. I would gather my strength, not with loud declarations or angry confrontations, but through steady, deliberate action. I would let time and patience be my allies. I pictured myself moving forward along new roads, finding new symbols of freedom and joy to replace what had been lost. The scars of betrayal would remain, yes, but they would remind me not of weakness but of resilience, the power to endure and transform pain into growth. I thought of the long journey ahead, not just miles of roadway but miles of inner healing. Each step would be mine to take, each choice mine to make, free from the control and greed that had tried to bind me. In the depths of my heart, I found a renewed sense of hope. The road was uncertain, fraught with discomfort and challenge, but it was also filled with possibility. I knew I would face obstacles, moments of doubt, and loneliness, but I also knew that within me lay the capacity to overcome all of it. The betrayal might have shattered the trust between me and my daughter, but it could not break my spirit. I was a mother who had given everything, and I would not be silenced or forgotten. My voice would rise not as a lament but as a quiet declaration of strength and self-worth. The day faded into night, and as darkness settled over the house, I felt a calm settle within me. It was not the calm of resignation but the calm of readiness. I would prepare, watch, and wait for the right moment to act, not with fury but with wisdom. This was the beginning of a different journey, one marked by silent resolve and inner power. The pain of betrayal had awakened something I thought was lost: my capacity to choose freedom on my own terms. And so, I held on to that fragile courage, nurturing it with patience and hope. The miles ahead were mine to claim, one quiet step at a time, toward a new life beyond betrayal, filled with strength, peace, and the promise of rediscovery. The quiet resolve that had taken root within me matured slowly but steadily, forming a deliberate and thoughtful plan. It was a plan shaped not by anger or rash impulses, but by the steady hand of lived experience and a deep well of patience learned through years of silent endurance. That evening, as shadows danced softly against the walls of my living room, I sifted through memories and lessons that had long been tucked away, searching for strength and clarity to guide my next steps. One memory stood out: my late husband's unwavering faith in me, not only as his wife but as a capable guardian of our family's legacy. He had quietly taught me about finances, assets, and responsibilities, trusting me to protect what we had built together. For years, I had managed household accounts and budgets without fanfare, seeing those duties as merely practical. Now, I recognized that knowledge is my most valuable tool. Despite the cruel loss of the insurance money placed in Lily's pocket without my consent, I understood that I still possessed rights and resources. My late husband's estate, investments, and belongings were mine to claim, and I was no longer powerless. That realization sparked a practical, grounded hope within me, the kind born of preparation, not mere fantasy. I began to sketch out a plan to regain my independence, not by confrontation, but by steady, deliberate actions. The first step was reaching out to an old friend, Robert, who owned an RV dealership just outside of town. His steady voice on the phone was a balm to my restless mind as I explained my desire to find freedom on the road and a home on wheels where I could breathe again. Robert's surprise was palpable. but so was his support. "An RV, Margaret. That's a bold move," he said gently. I smiled softly, unsure yet determined. "It's time I thought about myself for a change," I told him. "I need the space and freedom to heal." From that moment, my plan gained momentum. Gathering documents became a daily ritual: insurance policies, bank statements, deeds, and legal papers, each file a small but significant step toward reclaiming control. What once felt like overwhelming bureaucracy transformed into a lifeline, tied to the faith my husband had shown in me years ago. Sorting through these papers, I found a comforting rhythm, empowered by the knowledge that I was piecing together my future. Parallel to the practical work was an internal journey. I revisited the broken bonds with Lily and Chad, holding the grief and disappointment close but refusing to let bitterness consume me. Instead, I resolved to protect my spirit, to rebuild from the wreckage as someone who commands respect and dignity. The vision of the RV became vivid in my mind, not just as a vehicle, but as a sanctuary. Unlike the house that held so many broken promises, the RV symbolized movement, freedom, and the possibility of rewriting my story. I pictured myself waking to sunrises on unknown roads, the wind clearing away years of pain. As weeks passed, my preparations intensified yet remained cloaked in discretion. Lily and Chad continued unaware of the transformation underway within the walls they assumed they controlled. That ignorance was a shield, allowing me space to amass proof of their wrongdoings, evidence to protect myself should the need arise. Nights were often spent reviewing documents or making notes, not fueled by rage but tempered with calm resolve. I meticulously built a case against deceit, from the stolen insurance funds to the fractured trust, preparing myself for conversations yet to come. This was not revenge. It was justice tempered with wisdom. The RV itself moved from dream to plan. Conversations with Robert about models and features became a highlight. We discussed space and comfort, appliances and storage, the details that would make this new house feel like home. Every choice was an act of reclaiming control over my life. Though moments of loneliness and doubt punctuated the process, they were balanced by a growing certainty. The journey ahead would require courage and resilience, but I was ready to embrace both. Signing the papers to purchase the RV was a profound act of agency. Holding the keys in my hand was holding freedom itself. This was not an escape from pain, but a deliberate step toward peace. I knew the road would not always be smooth. The injuries of betrayal and fractured ties could not be erased simply by distance. I expected difficult conversations and moments of heartache, but armed with patience, evidence, and steady resolve, I felt prepared. This strategic plan was a quiet rebellion, a reclaiming of power without drama or noise. I was no longer a victim trapped by circumstance. I was the architect of my new life. As darkness wrapped around the house, I felt a calm readiness settle within. Not resignation, but anticipation, a quiet confidence that my time to move had come, and that I would do so with dignity. I would travel this new path deliberately, step by step, mile by mile, transforming pain into purpose. The transformation from suffering to strength would be my quiet victory. With the memory of betrayal etched deep, I chose to move forward with grace and tenacity. Each mile on the horizon was a promise not of forgetfulness, but of liberation and rediscovery. This was my journey now, not restricted by the bonds of a fractured family, but free to write my story anew. The day I finally held the RV keys was not just the culmination of countless hours of planning and patience. It was a turning point, a quiet but powerful assertion of my right to reclaim life on my terms. As I grasped those keys, the weight in my palm carried the promise of freedom, independence, and peace. Standing beside the glossy vehicle bathed in the soft light of late afternoon, I felt the winds of change stirring gently around me. The RV was more than a mode of transportation. It was a vessel for my journey toward healing. I spent the ensuing days meticulously transforming that space into a home that sheltered not only my body but my spirit. Every item I packed was chosen with care. The china set from my late husband's collection found a place in the cupboards, alongside soft blankets that whispered comfort, and books whose pages carried my solace and strength. Every box unpacked, every shelf arranged, felt like reclaiming pieces of myself long stashed away, waiting for this new beginning. Yet as I readied for departure, reality settled in with a bittersweet clarity. I needed to shed parts of my past items that had once symbolized familial unity but now felt like binding chains. Trinkets and furniture were boxed up, some sold, others gifted to neighbors or put aside. Each thing I let go of lightened the physical and emotional burdens that I had carried far too long. The process was heavy with nostalgia and grief, yet infused with hope, the tangible shedding of old ties that no longer served me. Amid the labor and letting go, my mind often wandered back to memories that still lingered in the walls of my old home. The children's laughter, holiday meals shared around the dining table, and quiet moments with my husband played softly beneath the fabric of my thoughts. It was a reminder of the life I had cherished, the love that had nurtured me, but also the sharp pain of betrayal, the fracture between me and those I had once called family. The RV's quiet interior held no echoes of past disappointments, only the soothing silence of possibility. It was my sanctuary, my cocoon, where I could breathe deeply without judgment, where I could start anew unbound by others' expectations. On the morning of my departure, the air was cool and fresh, with the scent of dew and pine hanging softly around me. The world was waking gently as I moved silently out the door. Lily and Chad remained oblivious, engulfed in their own lives, blind to the woman reclaiming her right to freedom. Their ignorance, while bitter, was a shield that allowed me a measure of peace as I started this journey. The engine's steady hum beneath me was a heartbeat, syncing with the rhythm of my renewed spirit. As the RV rolled onto the open road, a surge of exhilaration welled within. The road's endless stretch was an open invitation, each mile a small but powerful reclamation of control and autonomy. The landscapes unfurled outside my windows, dense falls of forest, golden fields warmed by the sun, distant mountains crowned with shimmering snow. Each passing scene was a reminder of life's vastness and renewal. The miles drew me away from the pain, letting hope seep gently back into the cracks of my soul. Throughout my journey, I kept a journal, a sacred space where I poured out long-suppressed emotions and dreams waiting to bloom. Writing became my balm, cleansing tears and laughter intertwined within those pages. The journey was not just through physical miles, but through the landscape of my inner self, charting a course toward healing and autonomy. The road brought moments of silence and reflection when memories surfaced, unbidden fragments of happier times mixed with the sting of lost trust. These ghosts pressed softly but firmly against the fabric of my calm, reminding me of my past. Yet, I faced those shadows with quiet courage, breathing slowly and letting the road carry the weight away. This freedom I sought was not only a geographical release, but a spiritual awakening, the power to choose my path, to define who I was without the shackles of betrayal or expectation. The absence of family interference was a beginning, but the true journey was learning to honor myself first. As the weeks passed, the RV became my cocoon and classroom, teaching me resilience and the beauty of solitude. Each mile I traveled brought small victories, a smile sparked by the sunrise, An unexpected kindness from a stranger, the peaceful silence under starlit skies. Each night, I found rest beneath vast, unending heavens, the quiet stars bearing silent witness to my transformation. In these moments, I discovered the strength to face the next day with open eyes, releasing the last weights of grief and stepping further into grace. Each dawn bore new horizons not only in the landscape but within my heart. The sharp pain of betrayal softened into a chapter difficult, yet formative, and I no longer allowed it to define me. In solitude, laughter found me again, at first a soft murmur, then a freer, genuine sound. Tears came to cleansing and healing, the language of release. With each breath, I shed heaviness and renewed my spirit. I was no longer captive to past wounds. I was my own architect, steering steadily toward a future defined by dignity, light, and hope. Every mile traveled was a declaration, a refusal to be silenced or diminished, a celebration of strength and new beginnings. Though the road ahead remained unknown, I faced it with courage. The past was a memory I carried with wisdom, the future an open horizon radiant with possibility. This was my new path, no longer one of escape but of emergence, where betrayal was transformed into freedom, sorrow became peace, and the journey itself was the reclaiming of life. Several weeks into my journey, the transformation within me felt undeniable, a slow awakening of strength and self-ownership that I had long yearned for. Each day on the road brought a deeper sense of peace, of becoming someone unshackled from the past. And yet, just as the miles stretched endlessly ahead, so too did the ties to my old life reach out to pull me back. It was in the quiet solitude of a mid-afternoon at a small rest stop that my life's fragile balance was shaken by an unexpected arrival. A hesitant, firm knock on the RV door interrupted the calm I had so carefully nurtured. When I opened it, standing before me were Lily and Chad, unannounced, their faces etched with a mixture of anger, confusion, and something like desperation. Their presence was an intrusion, a reminder that no matter how far I traveled, my past was never fully behind me. Yet, instead of retreat or anger, something steadied me. The woman who once folded beneath betrayal now stood steady, present, confident. "I didn't expect to find you here," Chad said, his voice tight and brittle. Lily's eyes were sharp, searching and perhaps, for the first time, uncertain. "You can't just vanish like this," she said, her tone accusing. "You owe us explanation." "We're family." I held their gaze without flinching, the quiet strength radiating from me a stark contrast to their stormy emotions. "I owe myself the truth first," I said calmly. "I owe you no explanation that undermines my own peace." Their eyes roamed the space that had become my sanctuary, the neatly arranged books, the folded blankets, the softly glowing lamps. Chad's jaw tightened while Lily's face flickered with a complex mix of resentment and disbelief. "You've been gone, making choices without us," Lily accused quietly. "This is tearing our family apart." I shook my head slowly, feeling the distance not just in miles but in years and wounds. "This family was fragile before my departure," I explained softly. "Now, it's no longer about holding it together for others. It's about building a life where I can breathe, live honestly, and be respected, starting with myself." The silence that followed was thick and heavy. None of us seemed eager to break it. Their presence was a sharp reminder of the fractures I had left behind, but also of the strength I had found despite them. Chad's commentary broke the quiet next, his voice a mixture of scorn and disbelief. "You think your RV and wandering make you free? You're running away from everything." I met his challenge with calm but resolute eyes. "Freedom is not running. It's choosing to live authentically, on my own terms. I'm not running from you. I'm running toward myself. For a moment, their anger cracked beneath the weight of my steady truth. Lily's gaze faltered, her eyes revealing a painful mixture of hurt and confusion. You've taken what's not yours, the money, this new life. You don't understand what you're doing. I shook my head, a faint but firm smile touching my lips. I understand more than you realize. This is not about possessions or control. It's about honesty, respect, and reclaiming my dignity. You fractured our family with your choices. I'm here now, standing firm because I chose to honor myself. Lily looked away, silence softening her face, but the hurt remained palpable. Chad's expression twisted with resentment, though something in his posture suggested he wrestled with the words he could not dismiss. That conversation hung heavy in the air, a crossroads where old wounds were acknowledged but not healed. It was the first true recognition that the life I'd chosen to build was no longer subject to their approval or interference. After they left, silence returned deep and tender. The encounter had stirred emotions I thought I had buried, but it also reinforced the core of my strength. I was no longer the woman who shrank in shadows or swallowed pain silently. I had found a voice clear and calm, a presence solid and unshakable. The confrontation, asymmetrical and unexpected, underscored that reclaiming my life would not be without discord or struggle. Yet I welcomed the challenge, knowing it was part of the proof of freedom standing firm where once I might have faltered. In the days that followed, I reflected often on what had passed. The balance of power was clearly shifting. Lily and Chad, who once exerted control over my life, had become distant figures in a story where I wrote the next chapters. Their efforts to unsettle me only strengthened my resolve to live free of fear, manipulation, and silence. Healing would not be linear, nor would peace come without occasional storms. But I had learned that true freedom demanded courage to face difficult truths and to stand alone if necessary. With each mile I traveled after their visit, the layers of past pain peeled further away. The road was no longer an escape but a symbol of slow, steady reclaiming of power from betrayal and loss. The wine outside carried away fragments of sorrow, leaving space for hope and renewal. My RV was more than a vehicle. It had become a sanctuary, a moving ceremony of my quiet victory, a testament to the power of patience, resilience, and self-love. I had chosen to step off the path drafted by others, embarking instead on a journey illuminated by my own strength. With each new sunrise, each fresh mile ahead, I affirmed that this journey was not about revenge or bitterness. It was about liberation, truth, and the promise of new beginnings. I was no longer defined by the betrayal that had sought to break me. I was reborn silently, patiently, with strength forged in quiet resolve. As the road unwound endlessly before me, so did the horizon of new possibilities, unbound, radiant, and mine to claim. As the days slipped softly into weeks, I found that the road was no longer just a passage stretching ahead. It had become the very rhythm of my healing, a song of resilience that played with every mile and every breath. The RV, once a symbol of escape, evolved into my sanctuary, the steady heartbeat that carried me away from past wounds toward a future painted with possibility. Each morning, the light spilling through the windows woke me gently, drawing me into a world that was mine alone to explore. I learned to savor the quiet, a silence no longer filled with ghosts of betrayal but with the slow unfolding of self-discovery. There was power in solitude, a deep well I had only begun to drink from. I carried the wind against my face as I drove, and in that sensation, I felt the lingering burdens of old sorrow dissolve, swept away like fallen leaves on an autumn breeze. The road stretched endlessly before me, an invitation to embrace the freedom I had fought so hard to reclaim. Every bend revealed new landscapes, towering trees, rolling hills, vast skies that mirrored the expansiveness growing within me. With each mile, laughter returned to me, soft and tentative at first, then bold and unrestrained. It bubbled up like a spring breaking through frozen earth, a celebration of life's unexpected joys. Tears came to deep, cleansing tears that dissolved years of silence and restraint, washing my spirit clean and making room for hope. I looked often to the horizon at sunset, watching the sky ignite in brilliant hues of orange, pink, and gold. In those fiery colors, I saw myself reflected, beautiful, strong, ablaze with renewed purpose. The sunsets became a daily reminder that no matter how dark the night, there is always light waiting to be born. Thoughts of Lily and Chad no longer chained me. They existed only as part of my past narrative, pages I had read and closed. Their absence, once painfully felt, bloomed into a quiet freedom. I was no longer tethered to their decisions or their betrayals. Instead, I followed my own compass, guided by values I had reclaimed and a self-love I was learning to nurture. The RV walls held no echoes of the drama left behind, only the peace I was building moment by moment, mile by mile. This new life was not about forgetting, but about choosing which parts of my story to carry forward and which to leave behind like footprints in the dust. Sometimes the solitude was profound, wrapping around me like a soft blanket. In those moments, I took the time to deepen my relationship with myself, to listen to the quiet needs and desires I had long ignored. I journaled, meditated, and dreamed, allowing space for my heart to grow lighter and stronger each day. The journey transformed me. I was no longer simply surviving. I was thriving, embracing a life shaped by dignity, clarity, and the freedom to be wholly myself. Each sunrise greeted me with a bold promise that the past's pain would not steal my future, and that I was worthy of joy, peace, and love. I learned to trust the flow of life again, knowing that the road might twist and turn unpredictably, but I carried within me the steady confidence born from courage and self-respect. No longer defined by betrayal or loss, I moved forward with grace, armed with a quiet power that nothing could unsettle. With every mile traveled, I shed more of the weight that had once threatened to consume me. In their place grew a profound sense of liberation, of freedom that was not just physical but spiritual, a reclaiming of voice, choice, and identity. The open road no longer held uncertainty but opportunity. It was a sanctuary for healing and a canvas for rebirth. Its endless horizon stretched wide with promise, welcoming me into a new chapter of life I was ready to author fully and fearlessly. As the sky stretched out in infinite blues and the sun dipped low, I found myself gazing ahead with unshakable hope. The journey was far from over, but I knew this. I would never again allow myself to be forgotten or controlled. I was free, whole, and alive. And so I drove on steady, undeterred, and deeply grateful into a life where every mile was a testament to my freedom, every sunset a celebration of my reclaimed story, and every breath a reminder that I was finally home within myself.